All right. So why does J.P. Moreland say that we should reject weak scientism? So he's already pointed out science cannot be practiced in thin air. One, it depends on many assumptions. Two, each assumption or presupposition has been challenged. And three, the task of stating, criticizing, and defending these assumptions is a philosophical one, not a scientific one, right? We can't titrate it. We can't scratch test it. We can't break it apart into its various elements. We can't make it go through three states of matter, four, if you're really fun. And so all those things can't be done to the scientific method or to science in general. It's a number of philosophical claims, and that's where the rejection of maybe you're convinced of strong scientism comes out. But again, he's wanting to ask then where strong scientism rules out these presuppositions altogether, because neither nature nor semantic content of the presuppositions themselves, nor their defense or rejections are scientific matters. Then the question becomes, well, then why reject weak science, which allows for various other ones? Maybe even someday it'll let, a handful of theologians come in and maybe present slightly on the ability to make evolution somewhat of a deist of some kind, maybe, if they're lucky.
Yeah,
they pay their dues.
So again, what he's getting at, and we need to emphasize this because there's always some confusion when you touch the word science, right? He's saying there are assumptions that are the basis of science, and these assumptions are defended philosophically. They're not defended scientifically. And so if strong scientism says only science gives us knowledge or the truth, it dismisses these assumptions because they're not scientific. And therefore, it crashes and burns because if the assumptions fail, if they're not true, then the thing that they're holding up, science, can't hold. So that's what he's trying to get at here with the problem with strong scientism. He says, though, that weak scientism does not get off the hook here just because it allows for some minimal justification for non-scientific claims while retaining the cognitive superiority, right, of scientific assertions. Why? Well, as he's explained in the previous chapter, the conclusions of science cannot be more certain, again, than the presuppositions on which those conclusions rest, right? So science rests, right? Here's my scientific, claim, and it rests on presuppositions, right, that hold up the claim. And of course, if the presuppositions are false or not true, then it can't hold up the scientific claim. That's what he's getting at here. And weak scientism has the same kind of problem.
Again, J.P. Moreland, not a presuppositionalist, but he's welcome to attend our lectures if he so wishes, because it does seem quite a bit like this is paralleling a lot of what we talk about on this side of the fence.
Yeah.
Well, this observation leads to our first lesson derived from getting clear on weak scientism. Advocates of weak scientism are confused about the relative cognitive strength of an assumption and a claim that is based on that assumption. So they think they've got it in the bag. They really do. They've got their claim, and they're kind of Wile E. Coyote. Just don't look down. Don't look down, and
you're good.
So he never quite makes it to the other side, right? Well, weak scientism believes that a claim based on an assumption has greater warrant than the strength of that assumption itself. Well, in reality, though, the claim is only as good as the assumption upon which it rests. Again, put yourself on the house. Which one do you want, the rock or the sand? You may want to shy away from beachfront property if that's all there is beachfront, because soon you'll be a houseboat, right? And because the assumptions, yeah. The swimming pool will become bigger and bigger. And because the assumptions are not scientific assumptions, but rather philosophical assumptions, philosophy has a kind of primacy over science, which again were what they were trying to get away from, but lo and behold, we all become philosophers in the end. Therefore, weak scientism claim that science always takes precedence over other disciplines is false, equals zero.
So that's the first lesson, right? There's this confusion between the claim and the assumption. The assumption has to be true if the claim is gonna hold, right? But if the claim implies that the assumption isn't true, that it's based on, then the claim falls as well. So that's the first problem here, or issue, or lesson, he tells us, with the weak scientists. A second lesson, he says, advocates of weak scientism underestimate the rational strength of many of the assumptions of science, and as a result, they do not give those assumptions the cognitive authority that they deserve, right? Remember, the following assumptions of science, he gave us a couple, I think two or three, for instance, the existence of objective truth that has something to do with, matching reality. That's an assumption.
Sure.
Objective truth exists and somehow it matches with reality. That's an assumption of science. It's not a scientific claim, it's a philosophical claim, right? The general reliability of our sensory and cognitive faculties. Again, that's an assumption of science. When I do science, I'm assuming the general reliability of my sensory, right, and cognitive faculties. Now, that's an assumption. It's a philosophical assumption. It has to be defended philosophically. It's not a scientific assumption. And then finally, the basic laws of logic and mathematics. Again, those are not scientific, right? So each of these assumptions, he tells us, seems to have a cognitive authority that, notice, is virtually unmatched, right? And so because in order for anyone to present reasons for denying one of these assumptions, they most likely will have to use the very assumption that they deny in order to support the reasons for denying it. So they are, they crash and burn. It's self-refuted.
Yeah, it seems to be the shoe that's on the other foot that you don't want to walk on.